Now that we know about dependent and independent variables, let's take a look at control, dependent variables, and hypothesis in this question. Alright, so this question reads, the diagram shows a controlled experiment designed to test how much time it takes for seeds to germinate under 4 different conditions. So we are looking at seeds germinating under 4 different conditions. 4 bean seeds were placed in each of 4 pots. Each pot contained 100 cubic centimeters of soil. All 4 pots were placed on the same sunny windowsill. A different amount of water was placed in each pot. So here we can clearly see the control variables. The variables we are keeping the same. Alright, so in this experiment, we have same identical pots, identical cups, with the same identical seeds in each pot. The pots are filled with same amount of water. So now, based on this experimental description, experimental setup, let's answer the following questions. The first question says, identify the independent manipulated variable in this experiment. So in this experiment, what is the independent or manipulated variable in this experiment? You can read from here that the diagram shows a controlled experiment designed to test how much time it takes for seed to germinate under 4 different conditions. Alright, so the independent or manipulated variable in this experiment, you can see here, is the amount of water we add. The first one we added 0 milliliters of water. Second, we added 10 milliliters of water, 20 milliliters of water, and 40 milliliters of water. So what we are changing, what we are manipulating, is the amount of water, as we can see here. The next question says, the dependent variable in this experiment. Remember, the dependent variable is what we measure or what we observe. So the dependent variable in this experiment is the size or the height of the seed, because we are looking at how the amount of water we add will affect how fast or how tall the seed will germinate. So the dependent variable in this experiment is the height of the seeds. Let's look at the next question. The next question says, state the hypothesis for this experiment. Remember, a hypothesis is a statement that can be tested. So in this experiment, the hypothesis is seeds germinate fastest in more water. So you can say that if you add more water, the seed will germinate fastest. So when you conduct this experiment, you can test to see whether the seed will germinate fastest if you add more water, or if you add no water, or if you add less water. So this is a statement that we can test. The last question says, identify 3 conditions shown in the diagram that are held constant in all 4 pots. So in all 4 pots, what are the conditions that are held constant or the same? So that means we are looking at the control variables. So the control variables are the things we keep the same in all 4 pots. So in all 4 pots, we have same amount of soil. So the control variables are the type of seed. The type of seed, the same in all 4 pots. The amount of soil is the same in all 4 pots. They are also the same kind of soil. The size of the container, the same in all 4 pots. Size of seed, they are the same. The type of soil too is also the same. So the control variables are the things we keep the same in an experiment. So these are the control variables. These are the things we keep the same in this experiment. The things we change, the things that we are testing, what we are testing in this experiment is the amount of water. So the amount of water in the first one, we don't add any amount of water. We have 0 milliliters of water. So that will serve as a control. The next one is 10 milliliters, 20, 40. All right, so the only thing we change in this experiment is the amount of water, because that is a variable that we are testing. The next one, we are going to learn how to record and analyze data. And in this question, it says, A young scientist testing the effects of different kinds of water on the growth of dark-wheat plants recorded the results in her notebook. Day 1 is 4 dark-wheat plants in all the 4 containers. So initially, the student had 4 dark-wheats in all the 4 containers. With rainwater, day 4 is 8 dark-wheats. Day 10 is 12 dark-wheats. And day 14 is 16 dark-wheats. When we use fresh water, day 4 is 6 dark-wheats. Day 10 is 8 dark-wheats. And day 14 is 12 dark-wheats. Finally, with salt water, day 4 is 5 dark-wheats. Day 10 is 6 dark-wheats. And day 14 is 7 dark-wheats. So the question for us is to record the experimental results in the data table below. So that means you are looking at day 1. That's the initial setup. Day 1, we have 4 dark-wheat plants in all containers. So day 1, you are going to have 4 dark-wheat plants in all the containers. Now let's look at rainwater. With rainwater, it says day 4, you are going to have 8. So day 4 here, we have day 10 here, we have day 14 here. So for rainwater, day 10, day 4, you are going to have 8 dark-wheats. Day 10, which you are going to have here, you're going to have 10 dark-wheats. Day 10, you are going to have 12 dark-wheats. And day 14, you are going to have 16 dark-wheats. So this is how, if you record your data, this is how it's going to look. So initial setup, 4 in each. Day 4, you have rainwater 8, which you see here. Day 10, you have 12 dark-wheats, which you see here. Day 10, you have 8 dark-wheats. All right. So you are just looking at what is stated in the experimental setup, then you are recording your data or your numbers accordingly. So you are just picking the values from the experimental setup and you are recording. Here, let's look at analyzing data and drawing conclusion. So it's the same experiment. Then the question is, what conclusion can be drawn from the data that the student collected? So based on the data, what conclusion can we draw? That means looking at the number of dark-wheats for day 4, day 10, and day 14 for rainwater and freshwater. What can we conclude? And based on the data, I can conclude, or we can conclude that dark-wheat plants grow fastest in rainwater because rainwater has the highest number of dark-wheats amongst all the other kinds of water. The dark-wheat plant grows highest in rainwater. And the reason is rainwater has the highest amount of nitrogen, or has a highest or the right amount of all the nitrogen or fertilizer or nutrient that the dark-wheat needs to grow. So that's our conclusion. Now let's look at this controlled variable and describing relationship. This is a question. Let's look at the question. A student placed 3 identical plant seedlings in soil and 3 identical containers and gave each seedling a different amount of water in each. The student measured the height of each seedling every day for 4 days. The results are shown in the data table here. So we have the results here. The amount of water given daily, height of seed in centimeters, day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4. Now let's look at the question that followed. The first question says, identify the dependent variable. Remember, the dependent variable is what we measure. So the dependent variable will be the height of the seed. The height of the seed. Identify the independent variable. The independent variable is what we change or manipulate. So the independent variable is the amount of water given daily. For the first seedling, we gave it 5. The second, we gave it 10. The third, we gave it 20. So what we change, what we manipulate is the amount of water given daily. That's the independent variable. The next question says, describe the general relationship between the amount of water each seedling received and its height on day 4. So we are looking at the amount of water each seedling received, amount of water given, and also the height on day 4. So we are looking at height on day 4 and the amount of water given. So what is the general relationship between them? So we can see that the amount of water given is increasing. We can also see that on day 4, the height of the plant is increasing. So we can say that the more water the seedling got, the taller they grew. Or the more water, the faster it grows. So if you increase the amount of water, the height of the seedling is also increasing. So that's a general relationship between the amount of water given daily and also the height on day 4. Let's look at the last question. It says, the plant seedlings and containers were identical. Identify 2 additional factors that should be held constant in this experiment. So in this experiment, what are some of the other control variables, or what are some of the other things we are keeping constant or the same in this experiment? So in this experiment, what we are keeping the same or constant, besides the plant seedling and the containers being identical, the other things we are keeping constant or the same are the kind of fertilizer given, air temperature, amount of soil, and the same type of water. Remember, in this experiment is the amount of water we are changing. The amount of water is what we are testing. So that is the only thing we are changing. We are testing the effect of the amount of water. So we are keeping all other things the same. So the other things we are keeping constant, or the control variables, are the kinds of fertilizer given, air temperature, amount of soil, same type of water. All right. Now let's look at this question. Predicting and describing relationship. It says the diagram represents a pendulum, which is a weight attached by a string to a fixed point and allowed to swing freely back and forth. A group of students did an experiment in which they timed in seconds how long it took for the pendulum to complete one swing back and forth for 5 different string lengths. The results are shown in the diagram. So we have the pendulum here. We have a string attached to a weight, hang at a fixed point. Then these are the height of the string. And this is the time it took to swing back and forth. So now, as they increase the height of the string, the length of the string, let's look at the time and let's answer the questions that follow. The first question says, identify the dependent or responding variable measured in this experiment. So in this experiment, the dependent or responding variable is the time to complete one swing, because the time to complete one swing, that's what we are measuring. That's what we are observing. Dependent variable is what we measure or what we observe. The next question says the independent variable. The independent variable is what we change or manipulate. In this experiment, what we are changing, what we are manipulating is the string length, the length of the string length. The next question says describe the general relationship between the length of the string and the time to complete one string. So we can see that if we increase the length of the string, the time also increases. The time to complete one swing also increases. As you increase the length of the string, what happens to the time to complete one swing? If you increase the length, the time to complete the string also increases. The longer the string, the longer or greater the time to complete one swing. The last question says, predict the amount of time necessary for a pendulum with a string length 70 centimeters to complete one swing. So 70 will be between 60 and 80. So that will be any number between 1.6 and 1.8. Any number greater than 1.6 and less than 1.8. That will